Hello friends, welcome to Xenier Coding Web Development Platform by using the HTML, CSS and JavaScript concept. In today's session, again we are going to learn a game development with the concept of snake basis. As you played this game on your day-to-day on mobile basis, hope you know the basic instruction. So this snake, it is start from the right hand side. I'm just using my up arrow and down arrow. You can to process this functionality, and once I'm clicking the up arrow, I'm just eating the food. You can able to see once the food it has been increased, in the sense the tail or the size of the snake is increasing. So I'm just continuing this game. You can able to see on the below basis, that is the score value. Once if it is hitted on the any wall, in the sense it start from the game again from the right hand side. So this is a basic instruction which we need to keep in mind to follow the to develop the coding on the scripting basis as well as on the HTML part. Okay, so without delay we can start the session, and we can try to learn what are the source code is required to execute this output. So on my HTML part, I have used their title, flapping bird using JS. You can use anything, and I have used their link relative as a style sheet and their type as text, which is of CSS. Next, I have used their reference as style.css. On closing my heading tag, I used my h3 part as simple snake game. And on the continuation, I have done their canvas ID of a stage and height of 400 and width of 520. I have closed my functionality, that is, I have used the functionality of script source, which is equivalent to script.js. Next, when I am coming to my styling part, I have used very less style, that is, body of text align is center, and a font family I have set it as Helvetica, and the background color I have used as black, and I have made their canvas of border 2 pixel and solid of RGB, which is of 151, 149, 149. I have used very less CSS part and HTML part. The main thing is the functionality on the scripting basis. So on the scripting part, I'm going to make their variable as this particular keyword I'm going to use, that is variable game is equivalent to game, and I'm going to use an additional operator, and you can get the additional operator from the web browser. Next, for variable, I'm going to use for my keyboard, and again I'm going to set it as keyboard, and I'm closing this statement. Next, I'm going to make their variable as component. For the component also, I'm going to set it as component. I'm closing this statement. So next, I'm going to use for my keyboard, I'm going to set it as their value of key map, and I'm going to set my 37, which is of left, and I'm closing this part. Next, for the 38, I'm going to set it as up, comma. Next, for 39, I'm going to set it as right. Next, for the 40, I'm going to set it as down. So this fourth thing is over. I'm just closing this component. So next, for the keyboard, I'm going to make it as controller events, where I'm going to call the function, and I'm going to make it as variable of self, which is equivalent to this. So next, I'm going to use a keyword of this dot of press key, which is of null. Again, I'm going to set it as this dot of key map, where I'm going to set it as their keyboard dot key map. This to local I'm going to set. I'm just closing this statement. Next I'm going to make their document dot on key down. So I'm just continuing, and I'm going to call the function where I'm going to make it as event, and I'm going to process that is self dot press key. So whenever the key has been pressed, it need to start, the event need to be start. So I'm making as event dot which. So I'm just closing this statement. So next I'm going to make it as this dot of get key, where I'm going to call the function, and I'm going to make their statement of return, where I'm going to process as this dot key map, and I'm going to make it as their property, this, that is this dot property. So I'm just done with this functionality. So I'm just closing this statement. So on the continuation of these, next I'm going to make their component stage basis. So I'm going to use this thing as component, and next is stage, which is equivalent to function, and I'm going to make their canvas, comma, configuration. So I'm just closing this functionality. Next I'm going to make it as this dot of key event, where I'm going to use new keyboard, and I'm going to make it as controller events. So this functionality I'm just closing. Next I'm going to make there this dot of width is equivalent to, I'm just making as canvas dot width. So I'm just closing this statement. Next I'm going to make this dot of length, which is equivalent to canvas dot height. So this is also, I'm just closing the statement. Next I'm going to make I'm sorry, this could be their height. Okay, so next I'm going to make their length, which is empty one, and next I'm going to make their this dot foot, where I'm making as curly braces. So next I'm going to make the score direction and configuration, where I'm going to start their direction from the right hand side. So you can able to see the here, like their food is curly braces. I have started my score initially of a 0 and direction as a right hand side. Next for the configuration, I have done their width to be a 10 and their size to be 5. FPS, it is nothing but foot pieces of 1000. Next I have used their condition, that is a if else if for condition, that is if my type of configuration is equivalent to my object, then it should process my condition whether my variable is in the configuration or not. Once if it is done in the sense, again I'm just making there this dot of configuration of key, where it should be equivalent to my configuration of key. So for the same component of the snake, we have we have created the stage. Next for the snake, I'm going to create their function of canvas configuration, and I'm going to make their this dot of stage is equivalent to new component stage, and I'm making their initialization of the snake has to be start their functionality, where I'm going to set their initialization as 0, and I'm going to check their condition is less than with the stage configuration size, and I'm making their values to be increased. So next I'm going to make that this dot stage dot length, where I'm pushing which is the value of x colon of I and y of a 0. So next I'm going to make their initialization of snake, and I'm making as initialization of food is to start their function. So where I'm going to process this dot stage dot food is equivalent to where I'm making their x-axis of y-axis, which is there. It should start their round. It should round their random value, and it should make their width should be subtract from my context of their width, and again it should be divide from my stage of CW. Again I'm just processing with my height. So under the height also it is again processing. You can able to see for the y-axis. So once the stage food is done over, in the sense I'm making their initialization, it need to restart their functionality. Again I'm starting with the same thing. We are repeated, no, that same thing I'm just processing, where this stage should be length and foot to be empty basis, and the score should be started off a 0, and it should start from the direction of a right basis, and I'm making the press key to be the null, and I'm making their initialization of snake to be empty, and foot all to be called this function. So under this I'm just going to make their game, where I'm going to make it as a draw, which I'm going to set it as their function, and I'm going to make their context and snake. I'm just closing this functionality, and I'm going to make this where it need to draw the stage. I'm writing the functionality, and I'm just making their snake their stage, and it should start their event, and it should get their key. So all it is done. I'm just closing this statement. So next I'm going to make their variable where it need to press, and it need to start their functionalities, and I'm just making there to be as key press. So this is over. So next I'm just closing this statement where I'm going to make their context dot fill style. I'm going to make it as white. You can choose any color. This is not mandate to follow whatever I mentioned. You can use according to your plan. So next I'm going to use the same context where I'm going to make their fill rect, which is I'm opening 0, 0, snake dot stage dot width. So again I'm going to use snake dot stage dot height. I'm going to set this one. I'm closing this statement. Next I'm going to make their variation of n of x, which is equivalent to snake dot stage dot length, and I'm going to set it as 0 value dot x. I'm just closing this statement. Next I'm going to make variation of n of y, which is equivalent to snake dot stage dot length, which is of 0 dot y. So here I'm going to use a switch statement. So I'm going to use a switch statement, that is switch dot snake dot stage directions, where I'm making their case right as nx, which should be increased, and I'm just giving the break statement. Again I'm using the case of left, where I'm making it as decreasing, and now I'm making as a break statement. Again for the case up, I'm making my y-axis as a decrement and down as y-axis of increment value, where under this I'm giving as a break statement. So next I'm going to make one more condition, that is if this dot collision, I'm just making their collision where I'm making their nx comma ny, which is equivalent to true, and I'm just closing this, opening the process where it need to restart my game, and it should return my statement. So I'm just closing. So next I'm going to make it as if my nx value is equivalent to snake and stage dot food. I'm just adding the additional operator. Similarly, my n of y, which is also equivalent to my snake dot stage dot food, that is also with my y-axis, and I'm just closing this statement. Next, I'm making their opening one where I'm making as variation of my tail, that is variable of tail. I'm going to set it as my x colon of n of x comma y colon of n of y, and just closing this statement, and I'm making as snake dot stage where it should increase my score value, and I'm making their snake dot initial food, their initial food also I'm just increasing. Else I'm going to make one more condition, that is else where it should make my tail snakes should be pop up. Okay, for this I'm just making as variation of variable of tail, which is equivalent to my snake dot stage dot length dot pop. This functionality I'm just calling, and I'm making the tail of x is equivalent to n of x, tail of y is equivalent to n of y. I'm just closing this statement. Okay, so we have done this thing. Next we need to draw for the snake. No, I'm just making for variable of I is equivalent to 0, where I'm making their less than should be snake dot stage and their length, it should increase their value. After this I'm making their cell, which is nothing but of snake dot stage dot length. So next we need to draw the cell with the cell of x-axis and y-axis, and once it is done, in the sense I'm just making this dot of draw cell where it should done with my snake dot stage dot food dot of x comma snake dot stage dot of food of y, and it need to process my fill text, it need to add the value. So I'm just processing this dot of draw cell, it need to draw my cell. No, for this I'm just using the RGB, and I have used the began part, and I have used the argument, and I have used the fill basis. Under the argument arc basis I have used x star snake dot stage configuration plus 6 and y star dot snake dot stage configuration of CW, where I have used 4 comma 0 comma 2 into math dot pi is, which is false. After the collision, I call the function of nx and ny. I have set the condition if n of x equivalent to 1, n of x equal to snake dot stage with divided by snake dot stage configuration of CW. Okay, so I have written the statement of true, and again I have written the statement of false. So next I'm going to write for the game for the snake, where I'm going to use game dot snake, which is equivalent to my function. So under the function I'm going to make their element element ID, and I'm just setting with as configuration. I'm just closing this statement. Next, I'm going to make their variation of canvas. So under the canvas, I'm going to set it as document dot get element by id. Next, I'm going to set their element id. So next, I'm going to make their variable of, that is context. I'm going to set their canvas dot get context. I'm just setting this one, which is also 2D basis, and I'm closing the statement. Next, I'm going to write for their variable of snake, where I'm going to set with my new one, that is new component dot snake. I'm going to make their canvas comma configuration and just closing the statement. So next I'm going to make variation of game draw. So where I'm going to make it as new game draw, and again this is my context, and I'm going for my snake. So this is my overall thing. Okay, to check my output, I have missed one more thing, that is we need to get the interval. Now for this I have used the set interval function, and I have drawn the stage, and I have been closed with a configuration. It need to upload on my onload on my window basis. For this I have used the function of window.onload, which is equivalent to function, and I have set their variable snake, which is equivalent to new game dot snake, and I have started this stage. You can able to see on my right side of my Xenia platform it is executing. So finally this is what the overall coding for this program. I hope this session gives a clear idea about the coding part. If you want any source code in this sense, you can use the below description which we have mentioned about this source code. And thanks for watching this video. Thank you so much.